The day Earth met aliens was just like any other Tuesday. The sun rose, people went to work, and kids complained about homework. No one knew that by lunchtime, everything would change. It started with a weird buzz on all the TVs and phones. At first, people thought it was just some big computer error. But then, a face appeared on every screen. It wasn't human. The alien had blue skin, big black eyes, and no hair. It spoke in a voice that sounded like it was underwater. "People of Earth," it said, "we come in peace." For a few minutes, the whole world was quiet. Then, chaos broke out. People ran into the streets. Some cried. Others cheered. It was like New Year's Eve, a natural disaster, and a rock concert all rolled into one. The alien message kept playing. They called themselves the Zorn. They had been watching Earth for a long time and decided it was time to say hello. They wanted to meet with Earth's leaders. World leaders scrambled to respond. The United Nations called an emergency meeting. Presidents and prime ministers flew to New York City as fast as they could. Meanwhile, the Zorn ship appeared in the sky. It was huge, like a floating city. It hovered over the Atlantic Ocean, not too far from New York. It was shiny and smooth, with no windows or doors that anyone could see. As the UN meeting started, no one knew what to do. Should they welcome the aliens? Should they be scared? Some leaders wanted to send the military. Others wanted to throw a party. Finally, they agreed to meet the Zorn. They sent a message to the ship, inviting the aliens to land in Central Park. It seemed like a friendly place for a first meeting. The next day, a smaller Zorn ship flew down from the big one. It landed gently on the great lawn in Central Park. Millions of people watched on TV and in person, holding their breath. A door opened in the ship. 3 Zorn aliens walked out. They were tall and moved gracefully, like dancers. They wore shiny suits that looked like they were made of metal. The human welcoming committee was led by the UN Secretary General. He stepped forward, hand outstretched. "Welcome to Earth," he said with a shaky voice. The lead Zorn looked at the hand, confused. It didn't shake it. Instead, it bowed slightly. "We are honored to meet you," it said in perfect English. The humans were surprised. "How do you speak our language?" someone asked. The Zorn explained that they had been studying Earth for years. They learned all of Earth's languages by watching TV shows and listening to radio. As they talked, the humans noticed something odd about the Zorn. They seemed nervous. They jumped at every loud noise. When a pigeon flew by, one Zorn ducked like it was being attacked. The Zorn leader saw the humans' confusion. "We apologize," it said. "Your world is very intense. There are so many unpredictable things happening all the time. How do you stay calm?" The humans looked at each other, puzzled. To them, it was just a normal day in the park. Kids were playing, dogs were barking, and taxis were honking in the distance. Nothing seemed intense or scary. "This is normal for us," the Secretary General said. "Don't you have parks and cities on your planet?" The Zorn shook their heads. "Our world is very controlled," they explained. "We avoid unnecessary risks and excitement. It's safer that way." As they talked more, it became clear that the Zorn and humans were very different. The aliens seemed scared of almost everything. They asked how humans could live in such a chaotic world. The first meeting ended with both sides feeling confused. The Zorn went back to their ship, looking relieved to leave the noisy park. The humans were left wondering what kind of aliens were so easily scared. As night fell, people all over Earth talked about the strange meeting. They were excited to meet aliens, but also worried. If the Zorn were scared of pigeons and traffic noise, how would they react to the rest of human life? Little did they know, the real culture shock was yet to come. A week after the first meeting, Earth and the Zorn agreed to start a cultural exchange program. The idea was simple. Some Zorn would come to Earth to learn about humans, and some humans would visit the Zorn planet later. 5 Zorn scientists arrived on a small ship. They landed at a special welcome center built just for them in New York City. The center had soft lighting, quiet rooms, and no sudden noises. The humans hoped this would help the Zorn feel safe. The Zorn team leader was named Zax. It was taller than the others and had a small purple mark on its forehead. Zax seemed braver than the rest, but that wasn't saying much. They all looked nervous as they stepped out of their ship. A team of human scientists and teachers greeted them. Dr. Sarah Chen, a friendly anthropologist, was chosen to be their main guide. "Welcome to Earth," she said with a warm smile. "We're excited to show you our world." Zax nodded politely. "We are curious," it said, looking around cautiously. "Your world is very different from ours. We hope to understand it better." The first few days were spent in the Welcome Center. The Zorn learned about Earth's history, languages, and cultures. They were amazed by how many different countries and ways of life existed on one planet. "Don't you all live the same way?" asked Zax. Dr. Chen laughed. "Oh no, we're all very different. That's what makes life interesting." The Zorn looked at each other, confused. On their world, everyone lived almost the same way. It was safer and more efficient, they thought. After a week, it was time for the Zorn to see more of Earth. Dr. Chen suggested they start with a trip to Central Park. The Zorn agreed, but they were clearly nervous. As they walked into the park, the Zorn jumped at every new sound. A child's laugh made them twitch. A dog's bark sent them hiding behind trees. Dr. Chen tried to calm them down. "It's okay," she said. "These are all normal sounds. Nothing here will hurt you." Zax took a deep breath. "We will try to be brave," it said. "But your world is so chaotic. How do you live like this?" Dr. Chen thought for a moment. "I guess we're just used to it," she said. "For us, all this activity is part of what makes life fun." The Zorn didn't seem to understand the word fun. They asked Dr. Chen to explain it. "Fun is when you do something because you enjoy it," she said. "Not because it's useful or necessary, but just because it makes you happy." The Zorn looked even more confused. "You do things that are not necessary?" Zax asked. "Is that not wasteful?" Dr. Chen smiled. "Sometimes the things we enjoy the most aren't necessary for survival, but they make life worth living." As they walked, they saw people doing all sorts of things. Kids were playing frisbee. An old man was feeding pigeons. A group of people were doing yoga on the grass. The Zorn watched all of this with wide eyes. They asked questions about everything. Why were the children throwing a disc? Why was the man giving food to flying animals? Why were those people twisting their bodies into strange shapes? Dr. Chen tried to explain each activity. The children are playing a game. The man enjoys watching the birds. The people doing yoga are exercising and relaxing at the same time. Zax shook its head. "But what is the purpose? What do they gain from these activities?" "Joy," Dr. Chen said simply. "They gain joy." The Zorn talked among themselves in their own language. They seemed bothered by what they saw. Finally, Zax turned to Dr. Chen. "We have much to learn about humans," it said. "Your ways are very strange to us, but we will try to understand." As they left the park, Dr. Chen felt both hopeful and worried. The Zorn were trying to learn, but they were so different from humans. She wondered how they would react to more exciting human activities. Little did she know, the biggest shocks were still to come. The amusement park visit was scheduled for next week, and Dr. Chen had a feeling it would be an unforgettable experience for everyone involved. A week after the park visit, Dr. Chen decided it was time for the Zorn to experience something more exciting. She chose to take them to Happy Land, a popular amusement park just outside the city. She thought it would be a fun way to show the aliens how humans enjoy themselves. The day started early. Dr. Chen and her team picked up the Zorn in a big van. The aliens looked nervous as they got in. They had never been in a car before. "Don't worry," Dr. Chen said with a smile. "It's perfectly safe. We use these all the time." Zax nodded, but its big eyes were full of worry. If you say so, Dr. Chen. We trust you. The drive to Happy Land took an hour. The Zorn spent the whole time looking out the windows, amazed by the speed and the changing scenery. When they finally arrived, their jaws dropped at the sight of the park. Happy Land was huge. It had tall roller coasters that twisted and turned in the sky. There were colorful rides that spun and flipped. Everywhere, people were laughing and screaming with joy. What is this place? Zax asked, its voice shaking a little. Dr. Chen grinned. This is an amusement park. It's where humans come to have fun and feel excited. The Zorn looked at each other, confused and scared. But it looks dangerous, one of them said. Oh, it's not dangerous at all, Dr. Chen assured them. Everything here is very safe. The screams you hear are because people are having fun. The aliens didn't look convinced, but they followed Dr. Chen into the park. As they walked, they saw more and more things that shocked them. They passed a huge water slide where people were speeding down in tubes. Why are they doing that? Zax asked. Are they being punished? Dr. Chen laughed. No. They're doing it because it's fun. The speed and the splash at the end make them feel good. Next, they saw the bumper cars. People were driving small cars and crashing into each other on purpose. The Zorn were horrified. They're attacking each other. One Zorn cried. Should we call for help? Dr. Chen had to explain that it was just a game. The cars were slow and had big bumpers. No one was getting hurt. The Zorn still didn't understand why anyone would want to crash on purpose. But the biggest shock came when they reached the park's main attraction. The Mega Coaster. It was the tallest and fastest roller coaster in the country. From the ground, they could hear people screaming as the cars zoomed by. What? What is that? Zax asked, its voice barely a whisper. Dr. Chen explained how roller coasters worked. She told them about the big drop, the loops, and the speed. She said it was one of the most popular rides in the park. The Zorn were speechless. They watched as people got off the ride, laughing and talking excitedly about how scary it was. But if it's scary, why do they look happy? One Zorn asked. Dr. Chen thought for a moment. For many humans, feeling a little scared can be fun. It makes us feel alive. And when it's over, we feel proud that we were brave enough to do it. Zax shook its head. I do not understand. On our world, we avoid all danger. We never do anything that might be scary or risky. Dr. Chen nodded. I know it's very different from what you're used to. But for us, these thrills are a big part of how we enjoy life. Just then, a park worker came up to them. He had heard about the alien visitors and had a special offer. Would your alien friends like to try the Mega Coaster? He asked with a big smile. We can give them a special ride, nice and slow. The Zorn looked at the massive coaster. Then they looked at each other. Fear was clear on their faces, but there was something else too. A tiny spark of curiosity. Dr. Chen held her breath. Would the Zorn be brave enough to try a human thrill ride? Or would this be too much for them? The answer would show just how different their two species really were. After the shocking experience at the amusement park, Dr. Chen decided to show the Zorn something a bit calmer. She took them to watch some sports games. She thought this would be a good way to show how humans enjoy friendly competition. The first stop was a soccer match. It was a big game between two popular teams. The stadium was full of excited fans. They were all wearing team colors and waving flags. As they walked to their seats, the Zorn looked around with wide eyes. Why are there so many people here? Zax asked. Is this some kind of important meeting? Dr. Chen smiled. No, they're all here to watch the game. Humans love sports. We enjoy watching skilled players compete against each other. The Zorn nodded, but they still looked confused. When the game started, they watched closely. At first, they seemed interested in how the players moved and passed the ball. But when one player tackled another to get the ball, the Zorn gasped. That player attacked the other one. One Zorn cried. Will he be punished? Dr. Chen had to explain that tackling was part of the game. It wasn't meant to hurt anyone. The Zorn couldn't understand why anyone would allow such rough play. Things got even more confusing when a goal was scored. Half the crowd jumped up, cheering and hugging each other. The other half looked sad or angry. Some people were even yelling at the players. Why are they so upset? Zax asked. It's just a game, isn't it? Dr. Chen nodded. Yes, but humans get very passionate about sports. They feel happy when their team does well and sad when they don't. The Zorn shook their heads. On their planet, no one would get so emotional about a game. They couldn't see the point. After the soccer match, Dr. Chen took the Zorn to see a boxing match. She thought they should see different types of sports. But this was even more shocking for the aliens. As soon as the first punch was thrown, the Zorn stood up in alarm. They're fighting. Zax shouted. We must stop them. Dr. Chen had to hold Zax back and explain that this was the point of boxing. The two people in the ring were athletes, trained to fight safely. They were competing to see who was stronger and more skilled. The Zorn couldn't believe it. You mean they're hurting each other on purpose? For fun? One of them asked. Well, yes, Dr. Chen said, but they're very well protected. And they choose to do this. No one forces them. The aliens watched the rest of the match in silence. They flinched at every punch. When it was over, and the winner was celebrating, the Zorn looked more confused than ever. I do not understand, Zax said. On our world, we would never allow such violence, even as a game. Why do humans enjoy this? Dr. Chen thought carefully before answering. I think it's because humans admire strength and bravery. Boxing lets people test these qualities in a controlled way. And for many, there's excitement in watching a contest where anything could happen. The Zorn talked among themselves in their own language. They seemed to be having a heated discussion. Finally, Zax turned back to Dr. Chen. We have seen many strange things on your world, it said. But this love of competition and physical conflict is perhaps the strangest. Do all humans enjoy such aggressive pastimes? Dr. Chen shook her head. No, not all humans like sports, especially not boxing. We all have different things we enjoy. Some people like calm activities, like reading or gardening. Others like more exciting things. The Zorn nodded slowly. They were starting to see how varied human interest could be. But they still didn't understand why anyone would choose excitement or risk over safety and calm. As they left the sports arena, Dr. Chen wondered what the Zorn would think of the next activity she had planned. If they thought regular sports were shocking, how would they react to extreme sports? She had a feeling the biggest surprises were yet to come. After the sports events, Dr. Chen decided it was time to show the Zorn something really exciting. She took them to watch some extreme sports. These were activities that even many humans thought were dangerous. The group went to a big outdoor event. There were all kinds of extreme sports happening. People were jumping out of planes, riding motorcycles over big jumps, and climbing tall rock walls without ropes. As soon as they arrived, the Zorn froze. Their eyes were wider than ever before. Zax's mouth was open in shock. What is happening here? It asked in a shaky voice. Dr. Chen smiled. These are extreme sports, she explained. They're activities that give people a big thrill. They can be a bit dangerous, but that's part of the excitement. The Zorn couldn't believe what they were seeing. They watched as a person jumped out of a plane high in the sky. The person fell for a long time before opening a parachute. Why would anyone do that? One Zorn asked. They could die. Dr. Chen nodded. Yes, there is some risk. But these people are very well trained. They do it because the feeling of falling through the sky is amazing to them. It makes them feel alive. Next, they saw people riding bikes off big ramps. The bikes flew high in the air, and the riders did flips and turns before landing. The Zorn gasped every time a bike left the ground. They couldn't understand why humans would take such risks. On their planet, everyone tried to stay as safe as possible all the time. But the biggest shock came when they saw the rock climbers. These people were climbing up the side of a tall cliff. They didn't have any ropes or safety gear. They were just using their hands and feet to hold onto small rocks. Zax shook its head. "This is madness," it said. "Why do they not use machines to climb? Why risk falling?" Dr. Chen thought about how to explain. For these climbers, the challenge is the point. They want to use their own strength and skill to do something very hard. When they reach the top, they feel a great sense of achievement. The Zorn watched the climbers for a long time. They seemed both horrified and fascinated. One Zorn even moved closer to get a better look. As they walked around the event, they saw more shocking things. People were surfing on huge waves, skiing down steep mountains, and racing cars at high speeds. With each new sport, the Zorn had more questions. They wanted to know about safety, about training, about why humans would take such risks. Dr. Chen did her best to explain. "You see," she said, "many humans enjoy feeling excited or even a little scared. It makes them feel more alive. And when they do something dangerous and survive, they feel very proud." Zax shook its head. "On our world, we believe that a calm and safe life is the best life. We do not understand this desire for, what did you call it? Thrills." Dr. Chen nodded. "Yes, thrills. I know it's very different from your way of life, but for many humans, these thrills are what make life fun and interesting." As they were leaving, they passed a booth where people could sign up to try bungee jumping. To everyone's surprise, one of the younger Zorn stopped and looked at it closely. "What is this?" it asked. Dr. Chen explained how bungee jumping worked. The young Zorn listened carefully, then turned to Zax. "Could we, maybe, try this?" it asked quietly. Zax looked shocked. "Try it. But it's so dangerous." The young Zorn nodded. "Yes, but I'm curious. I want to understand why humans do this." Everyone was quiet for a moment. Dr. Chen held her breath. Would the Zorn actually try an extreme sport? It seemed impossible, but then again, they had seen so many impossible things already. Zax looked at the bungee jump, then at its young friend. It seemed to be thinking hard. Finally, it spoke. Perhaps we should learn more about this activity first." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. Dr. Chen smiled to herself. Maybe the Zorn were starting to understand humans better than anyone had expected. After all the excitement of real-world activities, Dr. Chen thought it was time to show the Zorn something different. She decided to introduce them to virtual reality games and simulations. She hoped this would be less scary for the aliens, while still showing them how humans like to have fun. The group went to a big video game center in the city. It had all kinds of games, from simple phone apps to big virtual reality setups. When they walked in, the Zorn looked around with curiosity. There were flashing lights, beeping sounds, and people of all ages playing games. "What is this place?" Zax asked. It didn't look scared, just confused. Dr. Chen smiled. "This is a place where humans come to play video games. These are like pretend worlds that we can control and explore." She led them to a row of big screens. People were standing in front of them, moving their arms and legs. On the screens, cartoon characters were copying their movements. One of the Zorn pointed. "Are those tiny people trapped in the glass?" it asked. Dr. Chen laughed. No. Those are just pictures. The people are controlling them by moving their bodies. It's a dance game. See how they're trying to match the moves." The Zorn watched for a while. They seemed interested in how the people and the game characters moved together. One of them even started to bob its head to the music. Next, Dr. Chen took them to a racing game. People sat in fake car seats and used steering wheels to drive cars on a screen. The seats moved and shook to make it feel real. This lets people pretend they're driving fast cars, Dr. Chen explained. It's exciting, but completely safe. The Zorn looked at each other. This seemed like something they might understand. It was thrilling, but not dangerous. Zax even asked if they could try it. Dr. Chen was surprised but happy. She helped Zax sit in the seat and showed it how to use the controls. At first, Zax was very careful, driving slowly. But after a while, it started to go faster. By the end of the game, Zax was smiling. That was interesting, Zax said. I see why humans might enjoy this. Encouraged by this, Dr. Chen decided to show them the most advanced games. She took them to the virtual reality area. Here, people wore special headsets that covered their eyes. The headsets showed them a whole different world. Dr. Chen helped one of the Zorn put on a headset. The game was a simple one where you could walk around a beautiful forest. The Zorn gasped as it looked around. It's like I'm in another place, it said. But I know I'm still here. How strange. The other Zorn took turns trying different VR games. They walked on the moon, swam with dolphins, and even flew like birds. They seemed to enjoy these calm games. But then they saw someone playing a more exciting game. In this one, the player was fighting dragons in a magical world. The Zorn watched as the player swung a fake sword, dodging and attacking. Why is that person fighting? One Zorn asked. Is it not dangerous? Dr. Chen explained that it was just pretend. The person knew it wasn't real, but it was fun to imagine being the hero. The Zorn talked among themselves. They seemed unsure about this. Zax turned to Dr. Chen. We understand enjoying the calm games, it said. But why do humans want to pretend to fight or be in danger? Dr. Chen thought for a moment. I think it's because humans like to imagine being braver or stronger than they are in real life. These games let us try exciting things without any real risk. The Zorn nodded slowly. They were starting to understand, even if they didn't fully agree. As they left the game center, Dr. Chen noticed the Zorn talking excitedly. They were comparing the games they had tried. Some even said they would like to play again. Dr. Chen smiled to herself. It seemed that virtual reality might be a bridge between human and Zorn ideas of fun. Maybe, through games, the two species could start to understand each other better. But she knew there was still a lot for the Zorn to learn about humans. And maybe, she thought, humans had some things to learn from the Zorn too. The cultural exchange program was coming to an end. After weeks of experiencing human pastimes, the Zorn were getting ready to go home. Dr. Chen organized a final meeting to talk about what they had learned. The meeting was held in a quiet room at the Welcome Center. The Zorn sat around a big table with Dr. Chen and other human scientists. Everyone looked a bit tired, but excited to share their thoughts. Zax spoke first. When we first came to Earth, we were shocked by many things, it said. Your world seemed so chaotic and dangerous to us. We couldn't understand why humans lived this way. The other Zorn nodded in agreement. They had all felt the same at first. But now, Zax continued, we are starting to understand. Humans seek out excitement and challenges. You push yourselves to do new things. It's very different from our way of life. Dr. Chen smiled. That's right, she said. We believe that facing challenges helps us grow and learn. But we'd love to hear more about your way of life too. One of the younger Zorn spoke up. On our world, we focus on being safe and calm. We don't have sports or games like you do. We thought this was the best way to live. But it added, looking a bit shy. I must admit, some of the things we tried here were interesting, especially the virtual reality games. They let us experience excitement without real danger. This made the humans lean forward with interest. They hadn't expected the Zorn to enjoy any of the human activities. Another Zorn joined in. Yes, and we were impressed by how humans use excitement and challenge to drive innovation. Your desire for thrills has led to many advances in technology and science. Dr. Chen nodded. That's a great point, she said. Many of our inventions came from trying to do exciting new things, like how trying to fly led to airplanes, which changed how we travel. The room was quiet for a moment as everyone thought about this. Then Zax spoke again. "We have learned much about humans," it said. "We see now that your love of excitement is not just about having fun. It's part of how you grow and improve as a species." The humans smiled, happy that the Zorn were starting to understand them better. But then Zax surprised everyone. "However," it said, "we think humans could learn something from us too." The room got very quiet. The humans looked at each other, curious about what Zax meant. "We have noticed," Zax explained, "that humans often forget to rest and be calm. You are always seeking the next thrill or challenge. But there is value in peace and quiet too." Dr. Chen nodded slowly. She hadn't expected this, but she could see Zax's point. "On our world," Zax continued, "we take time each day to be still and quiet. We think deeply about things. This helps us solve problems and understand ourselves better." The humans in the room looked thoughtful. They realized that in all the excitement of showing the Zorn human activities, they hadn't learned much about the Zorn way of life. "Maybe," Dr. Chen said, "we could learn to balance our excitement with some of your calmness. And maybe you could add a little bit of our excitement to your calm lives." The Zorn looked at each other and then nodded. "Yes," Zax said, "perhaps there is a middle way that takes the best from both our cultures." As the meeting ended, everyone felt good. The Zorn had learned to understand and even appreciate some human pastimes. And the humans had learned that sometimes being calm and careful could be good too. Dr. Chen watched as the Zorn got ready to leave Earth. She knew this was just the beginning. There was still so much for humans and Zorn to learn from each other. Who knows? She thought to herself, maybe next time, we'll see Zorn playing soccer or humans practicing Zorn meditation. The idea made her smile. The universe, she realized, was full of surprises, and learning about each other's differences was perhaps the most exciting adventure of all.